Helen, thanks so much for coming and talking to us.
Oh, thanks.
Will you just identify yourself for the tape, please?
Yes, I'm Helen McSherry. I'm from Belfast, but I live in Cardiff.
Helen, thanks so much. Why do you write?
Why do I write? Lots of reasons. I write because it kind of channels things. I'll tell you, I used to play cello, and that was my job. And I stopped playing cello I got a problem with my joints, and I can still play, but not professionally. And once I stopped, there was something I really missed. And I used to write when I was younger, and I started to write again without realising that that was it. It was this channel, the same kind of artistic channel that was used when I was playing the cello was being used when I wrote. So essentially, I wrote all for myself. And then I started to write also because I joined writing groups and I met the most incredible people and a lovely support network, and got to hear their work. And then I wrote because I would then start to read at events and open mics, and then started to realise, I'm getting good at this, and people would give me encouragement and recognition, and which just inspires you to write more. So it kind of mushroomed, I would say.
There's this growing connection between poetry and music. They seem to
I
be
know.
so closely associated.
They really do. I do think. I don't think this idea of a poem is a song without words, or a song is a poem with music on top. I think they are different. And funnily, just the other week I was asking somebody who writes libretti for operas, are there any connections between? He's a poet, and I was asking, are there any connections between that kind of writing and writing poetry? And he was very definite. It was separate. That it was very different techniques that you used, and that there's a lot of vowel sounds in writing for a singer, and give a whole lot of technical reasons why it was different. So it was really interesting to hear that. But I do feel like they are very closely connected. And the best poems for me are the ones that have like a rhythm, a music, like a real sense of music throughout them. They're the ones that really draw me in.
Well, in any other language, I'm pretty sure, including Hungarian, that there's only one word for song and poem. I think we're one of the few languages that have a distinct difference between the two.
Do you know, that's amazing. And actually just bringing in other languages, like I did a writing workshop one time where the poems were being read in Persian and then in English. And it was in Persian that I could hear the rhythm and the music. Once they were read in English, they lost that. And so in Persian, even if I couldn't understand fully what it meant, I could get a sense of what it meant. I could hear the love or the sorrow or the loss or the emptiness through the rhythm of the language. So, yeah, that's so important.
How did you come to enter the Hammond House competition?
So the internet's wonderful, of course, because and then there's a list that goes on that writers can go to see what to submit to. This month, for example, you can get a whole list of what is going on. And I saw this competition, and I saw that it was a really, prominent competition, that it had, good support, good sponsorship, good prizes, and also the theme was really, really drew me in, this idea of time. And it brought me back to the poem that has come second in the Poetry Award. It brought me back to that poem that I'd actually written a number of years ago, and it brought me to it, and I took it out and I started to work with it. So not only did this competition enable me to enter it and be here now, it also brought me to a poem, ironically, from time past, and shape it a little differently than maybe I had originally, and enter it with. Also, the reason I submitted to this competition, though, is that it's only recently that I've started to submit. So although I've been reading out at open mics and events and sharing with friends and workshops, I haven't sent stuff out. And I've had an interest from a publisher who was saying, Helen, you have to send stuff out and you have to get a bio. And so I actually did this in a little burst of submissions, and Hammond House was one of them. So it'll always be close to my heart that this is one of my first, publications and a prize all wrapped into it. So it's actually really special, and this day and being here means so much to me and the people I'm meeting while I'm here, and I'll never forget, actually. Yeah.
Do you think this and the award you've got, or the recognition you've got, will that help in the future? Not just as encouraging your writing, which I certainly hope it does. But,
it does.
But in getting published.
Yes, it's definitely validating, and that's lovely. And I didn't know what to expect from having poetry, poems accepted and being out there. It's lovely to be validated. It's lovely to know people hear and get to read your work. But and that sharing of the poem is actually the most important part to me. But yes, it will have the happy knock-on effect of, for example, beefing up my biography, which is something the editor was saying, you need a biography, so this is a lovely, wonderful thing to put in my biography, and will remain in it. And it also, I put it on my feed. I've also joined social media in the last 6 months. I'm really going out there now, and I put this on social media when I got awarded it, and I got so many people piling in saying congratulations, that's fantastic, an international award, being recognised by fellow writers and friends was just wonderful. But also I know that this does boost my profile, and it does make people sit up and go, we thought she was good, we were right, or we didn't know, I must look her up. So absolutely, it's great for that.
Just one more thing about the sort of cultural roots and your own much more individual personal style. I think of Irish poetry, and I think of W.B. Yeats, who I happen to love, and Seamus Heaney, who grinds my gears, frankly. God, I won't even start on that. But things like Yeats. But I listened to you reading your poem this afternoon, and it was more like a sort of beat poetry tradition. I thought you'd be smoking a gauloise and wearing a beret and calling me a cool cat, man.
I think I'm kind of flattered.
I mean it as a compliment. Absolutely, but it's a very loving compliment. I thought it was fantastic. But there was much less of that sort of Celtic mysticism and much more of that awareness of the immediacy and of the immediate communication.
I think that's really interesting, actually. And although I smile at the thought of me and my beret, I really value that kind of hearing of my poem and that feedback. I think that's that's true, actually, in the sense that I'm in the poem. It's in the present tense, so that there is this immediacy. It was written during lockdown, and I wonder if that quality is there as well because of that. But I got shortlisted and for this prize, and my other poem is in the book, and it's called Holy Well, and it's very different, probably more along that kind of Irish mysticism. It's about the generations coming together, my father looking for this holy well and finding it in the ground, in the grass, and my granny, my daddy, and the daughters are all there, and in fact, the word mysticism is in the poem, the mystery. Granny gives the mystery reality is what's in the poem. So I suppose there's both, and I feel kind of chuffed now that you've kind of teased that out, and I can think, I can do these both kind of ways of writing.
I agree. I've just read the one about the will, and you're right. There's much more of an identity of continuities, but not stereotyping. By the way, I'm just enjoying the tradition.
Not at all. No,
I'd be on the shoulders of giants.
I'd be very happy for you to stereotype me alongside Yeats or Singer-songwriter or anybody. Longley,
One other thing I was going to make. You mentioned that this was. I mean, and you must have been a tiny little girl when there were the troubles in Northern Ireland were last. Troublesome, I suppose. I was much older, but the last time I was there was in the late 1980s, when it was still. You'd walk along the streets and say, "Excuse me," as a soldier was lying on the ground, and you didn't want to to tread on his hand or anything, and there were peace walls across the streets.
That's right, yeah.
But that's all more than a quarter of a century ago now. Does that really still inform the sort of cultural identity? And are those different cultural identities in Northern Ireland still interesting?
So, it certainly is part of me. I mean, you can't be a child and grow up with soldiers on your doorstep morning, noon and night, and horrible things happening regularly, and you can't grow up in that without it having a kind of you absorb it in some way. I mean, it's your childhood, we all do. If I grew up on a farm, I'd be sat here, you know, probably thinking of all the things and how that's influenced me. So yeah, but, and I do write about it, and it has been actually that's one of the other reasons I write, I would say, is because it's helped my mental health, actually, my well-being. A poem's a brilliant container. I think of it as a safe space to put things, but the shape and the form of a poem can really contain, which allows you to put massive subject matters in, but also to make them even more powerful because they're contained in that way. So it's like, you know, it can be therapeutic, but it can be incredibly joyful, which is a strange thing if you're writing about difficult material. The Belfast is a beautiful place, and was a beautiful place when I grew up, and the people and the communities there. And I had the joy and privilege of being able to be on both sides of the community because of my cello. So I went to youth orchestra, and I got to meet everybody, even when things were very, very segregated. Sometimes it was scary. Sometimes you had to hide in the backseat of the car if you were wearing your school uniform in order to go to a certain part of Belfast to access the orchestra. But I mean, we literally drove through flames to go to orchestra. So, and then we all came together and made music. And the same with writing. It breaks down barriers, and you write a poem from your own perspective. That's the only way you can do it. But inevitably people will say, oh my gosh, that is like so universal, that really connects with me. Or you'll have someone from your own community or a neighbouring community that will say, we experienced that too. It's, you know, it's really wonderful to see. So I don't know if I answered your question. It makes me quite emotional talking about that kind of side of writing, but I think it's really important.
That's brilliant, Helen. I mean, and it certainly does answer my question. Is there anything else you'd like to say that I haven't asked about? Is there anything
No,
else?
I think your questions have been brilliant. Just to say that I've had the most incredible time meeting everybody, meeting you, hearing everybody's work. I mean, I'll walk away from here totally inspired. So thank you.
Helen, thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's been brilliant.